Alright, how you doing guys? So today we're going to be looking at ALQ, a trend trade, pretty playbook setup. Really nice trade through the day. Had a much bigger move than we expected, and so we wanted to look at it and talk about what we could do better with this trade. This is not financial advice, so you can read this disclaimer on the screen. So what is a trend trade? The stock has a daily trend. The stock has a supporting catalyst, and then on the open the stock starts to break out, and then has a setup to support the entry for a longer term trade, the longer term trend. So how was the XJO position? So the XJO rallied before turning into the afternoon. A previously defined level that we talked about a little while ago came into play, which I thought was pretty interesting. You can see it kind of bounced off it a couple times before eventually breaking down through it. So what was the catalyst? Slight beat in guidance, but lower dividend per share, but there was also an earnings per share beat. How important would you rate the catalyst? I said about a 4 out of 5 in the pre-market. I wasn't that sure about it or how much of a move it would have. Maybe we'd miss something, I'm not really too sure, but still pretty happy with how we reviewed it. So yesterday's closing price was $10.87, gap up was 3.5%, short float was 0.37%. Shares on issue is 482 million, but the thing to remember is that although I don't have it listed here, the institutional ownership was quite high for the stock. So the ATR was 0.33, and sector was consulting services. 52-week high is the one that we wanted to focus on because it actually got to it, so 1169. And yeah, so we'll get into it. So the daily positioning, here we actually clashed it against the XJO, so you can see it's pretty much followed the XJO a lot of the time, with a couple of times where it didn't follow the trend exactly, but you get the idea. It's following the XJO, it's on its way up. And so you can see recently it started to go on an uptrend again, and we have this high of 1168. And you can see that the average price for this time period was low. The average time for this price period as well was about just over 10, I believe. And so, there was not many trapped buyers at all, really. And so this is the intraday chart. I'm going to show it to you in more detail so we can go a bit more into detail about the entries and exits. So here is the intraday chart. So you can see the first entry that we had was on the hold of view up. It gapped up about 3.5%, which was about an ATR, so we were a little bit wary on the match. But then, it started to hold view up, started to look all right on the tape. So we took a very small starter here and then sized up into the high of day break. And then it should have had a preemptive order up here, but ended up exiting partial as it came back down a little because I thought that this could be a serious resistance. That was a shame that we didn't get that fill there, but we ended up getting filled for the rest towards the highs. Probably should have kept a little bit on or sized in through the break, but we did scalp around a little bit here. Actually ended up losing a little bit of the scalping around here. And then you can see here, so this is the main point that we're going to focus on today with the tape. The main point that we want to really watch is this here, this consolidation slightly under the EMA before a serious volume flush into an instant rejection, and then a trend which broke the high and continued up to break the levels. So we entered as it held, so it couldn't break to a new low. We were risking off the low, or around 55-ish, and then we added through the break, and then we exited first into the high of day, just because we were trying to manage the trade well. Then we had a couple of ads around here that weren't too great because of this EMA break. We got a little bit shaken on the ads, but then we exited in front of 12, re-added above 12, but did not hit this as hard as we should have. You have this volume confirmation here, right? You can see that the volume compared to all the other candles during the day is much larger. So the move over the 12 was actually very convincing. So we should have really hit this as hard as we could in terms of size, and just risked off below this kind of range here. So maybe a 5 or 6 pip stop. But anyway, and then I sized out around here and up here. This I didn't mean to hit out on this part. That was an accident. I accidentally hit the quick trade and then so I sized back into that and then got out all of it up here. This exit I am not too fond of, but I think it made a lot of sense. We did end up getting a tiny bit more out, but we were in so small at that point that it didn't really affect too much. But that was a good exit for sure. And then we tried to short as it looked a bit extended and the tape looked to justify it, but that's something that we can learn from this, is not to fade these insane strength moves. I mean, you can see that the VWAP is being pulled on so many levels to the upside that it was a bit more unlikely that we were actually going to see a full retracement down around this area. Although when you took the short, risking off the 26 did make a lot of sense, and so it made sense, but really we should have been looking for the 20 drop to start packing on the short, and then through 12, I guess. But that was definitely a tilt trade, and so won't be making that one again. So back to the presentation. So now we're going to have a look at the tape. So I'm just going to bring it up on my computer here. So the thing that I want to notice here is the volume being done right before it dumps. So you can see here there's not that much volume being done. There's a bit of volume, but nothing serious. Bit of a sell there, bit of another sell here, but nothing extreme, nothing to really make you panic out of the trade. But then you get this part right here, which is about to come up, where you'll notice that in this course of sales around here, you can see the percentage of the volume that it did for the day. And so I want you to pay attention to the actual percentage of the volume, because this is already an hour into the day. So there was already quite a bit of volume done. And so there's 2% volume, and then it goes to 4, and the stock does not move. And when it doesn't move, that's a sign that it could easily drop here. And then as it drops, there's just not enough orders to catch it really until we get down into this kind of 50 region below VWAP. And then the buyers start to step up. You can see that there's more buyers, more buyers, more buyers. They're getting more aggressive. The sellers are weakening. And you can see that through the amount of shares being traded. And then you can see as it holds VWAP, that's when we started to put on a position. And we started to get on proper size as it broke through the 52-week high again. So why did we do that? We did that because it was making now a new high, like a higher high, higher low, as well as holding a very important technical and breaking to the upside. So what could we have done better? Like we said before, we could have hit the VWAP flush with a lot more tiers, held a much larger position through the whole thing, waited for confirmation to size up, and held a lot better stops. So a lot of the scalps that we were doing around this stock, we ended up getting stopped out of the ads and stuff like that, which was really kind of stupid looking at it in the longer term in hindsight, because our stops are just a bit too tight. So we're going to need to work on that, but definitely an area to improve. But yeah, Zach, do you have anything to comment?
Prior to that dump below VWAP, what was the setup?
So
if I was to see that stock right then and there.
So let me just get up the chart one more time. Okay, so let's say that you were just trading the morning setup. There was a couple setups here that I saw, or that I wrote down. So there was the high of day break, the high of day play, I guess you could call it whatever you want, as well as the VWAP hold. That was the main one that we entered on. But then there's also, you could have this kind of based here a little bit around the 50, which is a psychological level, so you could have played a bounce off of that 50 level. But the main one I would say is the VWAP hold. So you can see with these wicks that basically the sellers, they were trying to get out, but they couldn't meet the buyers. So the buyers were winning, and so that made us more long biased. So that was the main one, and then the high of daybreak. I wouldn't exactly say that it was easy to put in a preemptive order around the 20s. But it was very easy to get some size, to get a position on here and to size up through the move. I know a lot of people stayed away from this because of liquidity reasons, and that's fair. I think there was this essentially here could have very well have just been in a liquidity trap, that flush, where no one can get out, so they have to keep market ordering down And that's why you got to be careful with these, and you got to, you know, be a bit more conservative with where you're taking your profits and stuff, because at any point they could easily flush down. And you know, we didn't see anything huge after that with the flush downs, but you know, there very well could have been, this could have easily dropped another 30 pips, something like that, you know, this one up here. But yeah, so that's the main setup that I would say. Really, it's a trend trade. I mean, when you look at the daily coming into this, you know, it's on an uptrend, and you can see that it's pretty defined, the uptrend. And so when you have a reason to go long, you want to take that long, because everyone is thinking long. And so, you know, these are all of our predefined levels pre-market, and our inflection was between 11 to 11.12. So we were definitely looking for the long, and I think that the VWAP hold was the main play in the beginning.
If I was to miss that VWAP snapback, what's the next setup where I could have got in with a nice risk reward ratio? Or was that the main one?
I would
say it did hold at that high again and then consolidate and then keep going. If I missed that dump, where would I get in?
I would say maybe on this pullback here, you know, when you saw, if there was a tape reason to get in, I didn't really, I didn't notice one specifically, but you know, you very well, maybe there was a tape reason to get in here. But the main one that I would say is the high of day break. So you could have got in at the high of day break and risked off of the 37, so just below 37, and then kept it really tight, really small position, and then sized in through the momentum coming in. A lot of the times I would have probably retaken this, you know, this kind of low volume retest of the level. But there was a reason that I didn't today, and that was because it wicked over, right? So it showed that the level didn't have as much strength today. So, you know, on a normal day, you probably could have got in there and you probably could have made a 2% move or something like that. But yeah, so I would say that that's the main area for the morning trade. And then this is a very good area to get in. Then if it's about this one, I would say you could easily have gotten in on the high of day hold. So when it came back up, tested the low, tested it, and then came up, you could have got in. As well as the main one would have been the 12 break. That was a very clear trade to get into, and it held. You know, there's no real reason to sell too much here. You know, I de-risked because I thought about the percentage up, and I was also actually going to a meeting at the time. But you know, you didn't really have to de-risk too much there. But yeah, so I'd say that that's a very good trade. You know, you can almost see a wedge here, right? It's this kind of consolidation above the 12 before it breaks out. Then it comes down, tests the highs of the consolidation, and then continues up. So yeah, so I'd say that that's a very good entry as well.
Nice, thank you.
No worries. All right, well, thanks for watching, guys.